안녕하세요. 여러분의 한국어 선생님 고빌리입니다. Welcome back to the third part of this 7-episode series where I analyze each of the BTS members' Korean speaking. For those of you who are new to this channel, I am a Korean teacher. I've been studying Korean now for almost 18 years, teaching it here for over 10 years, and I can speak it fluently. And I'm going to be sharing with you my professional analysis of Suga and how he speaks Korean. Specifically, I'm going to analyze how he sounds overall, as well as talk about any dialect that he uses, any expressions that he uses, and overall paint a picture of his personality through the way that he speaks Korean. For full disclosure, I am not a native Korean, and that means that my Korean is not perfect, but I will do my best to be as accurate as possible. And if you would like to see more videos like this, please give this video a like and subscribe, or you can also join my Patreon page to help support me make more videos like these, maybe even sequels. In the previous 2 episodes, I analyzed RM and Jin. So now let's talk about Suga, known in Korean as Minyoongi. Suga was born in 1993 and grew up in the city of Daegu, which is the 3rd largest city in Korea by population, right after Seoul and Busan. Daegu is located in the southeast part of the country in an area known as Gyeongsang Province, which is important, and I'll tell you why in a bit. In BTS, Suga is a member of the rap line along with RM and J-Hope, who we'll be talking about in the next episode. And he's also known for not only producing for BTS, but also for many other artists. In fact, not only is he interested in producing music, but he also studied business as well as broadcasting, which I think plays a role in how he speaks Korean, as you'll find out. So, as a Korean speaker, who is Suga? Well, let's check out some clips.
1, 2, 3, 4. 오늘 지우개를 먹고 맛있다.
Sorry, here's the real clip I meant to show you.
괜찮아요? 그쵸? 형은 요리를 좀 해. 농담 아니라 진짜.
The very first thing I picked up on while listening to Suga speak is that he often sounds like he's serious, except when he's joking. But otherwise, he often speaks in a very straightforward manner. But not only straightforward when compared to the other members, but I mean in general. When he speaks, most of the time it's not in long, detailed, and poetic sentences like RM, nor is it full of dad jokes like Jin, but Suga tends to get straight to the point, pretty much all the time. In Korean, I might describe him as being 정색, meaning straight face. And you'll notice that much of the time when he's speaking, he tends to put on a straight face. Remember that Suga also has an interest in the business and producing side of the music industry, so it would make sense that he's skilled at speaking concisely. And not only is he good at speaking directly and expressing himself, but he's also pretty good at not being bothered by some of the other members' antics.
자는 슈가형 좀 찍어야 되겠다. 네, 잘생겼어. Make some noise!
Oh no.
아 진짜.
어떻게 형 너무 미안해요.
미안해.
Just stop. Now, before I go any further, let me clarify. Am I saying that Suga is always serious and never likes to goof around? Not at all. He's clearly able to keep up fine with Jin and J-Hope joking around him all the time, but generally he expresses himself in a more reserved way. And in most of the videos that I've watched while researching for this series, if you just fast forward or rewind a little bit, I would see him joking around or teasing one of the other members as well. So keep in mind that if you see Suga making a serious face, it doesn't always mean that he's being serious. In fact, I think that his expressions can often make his humor even funnier, such as in his reaction in this clip that I shared from Jin's episode.
소가 웃으면 뭔 줄 알아?
무하하? Just give me some more of the fish. Now, since Suga was born in 1993, he's older than everyone else in the group, with exception of Jin, who was born the year earlier. So that means Jin is the only one who could speak casually toward Suga, which, yes, he does all the time.
그러니까 근데 이건 내 마음가짐인 거잖아.
윤기야, 넌 너무 철학적이야.
둘중 하나를 골라 제발.
너는 너무 철학적이야, 윤기야.
고르라고 그냥 제발
저
부탁이니까.
단순히 이 두 개 중 하나를 선택하란 말이야.
But in general, the other members are required to speak a bit more politely toward Suga since he's older in Korean age. And there's something else that I actually want to mention about that, because if you're not already aware, in Korean, your age is calculated a bit differently. You're 1 year old from when you're born, and you actually gain a year at the start of every new year on January 1st, so not on your birthday. And that's why you'll hear all this talk about speaking differently to someone in Korea based on their age. It's based on the year that someone was born. So Jin will always be the hyung, or older brother to Suga, even though their birthdays are only 3 months apart. But that's all changing this year. Sort of. There's a new law in Korea that eliminates this usage of Korean age for any sort of legal purposes. In fact, here's a quick clip from last year where Suga talks about this change to Jin.
내년부터 만 나이 아닙니까?
나 9개월 동안 친구라니까 만나이로 가면 9개월 동안 친구야. 프렌드야, 프렌드.
So he's joking that when the law changes that he and Jin will actually be 친구, so friends, for 9 out of 12 months every year. And technically, beginning this year, many people will just start counting their age like you and I would. But not much is actually changing because in Korea, it's not that common to say your age anyway. It's more common just to say the year that you were born, followed by 년생, meaning year of birth. So because Suga was born in 1993, he would just tell someone that he's 93년생. And since Korean politeness levels depend on the year that you were born anyway, this new law won't really affect much. At least not anytime soon. Another thing this law won't affect is Suga's use of filler words, and he uses a lot of those.
너무 키가 안 맞는 것 같으니까 플러스 아닌 것 같아.
Now, everyone uses filler words to an extent when speaking, and these are just words that don't have much meaning in the sentence other than to add emphasis or show that you're thinking. Some common filler words that you might hear are 그 or 저, making a hissing sound, as Suga does in this clip at the beginning, as well as words like 막, 이제, and more. But Suga definitely has a favorite filler word, 굉장히.
뭔가의 매니아가 뭔가의 팬이 된다는 거는 그 삶에 있어서 굉장히 뭔가를 사랑하면서 살아간다라고 전 표현을 하거든요.
굉장히 is an adverb, so you can add it before any verb, and it means extremely or awfully or just very. So instead of saying 좋아요, something is good, you could say 굉장히 좋아요, and now you have something's awesome. Now, while many filler words can make your sentences sound a bit casual or less polished, like saying or this word 굉장히 also just sounds like a normal word. So many people use this word as a filler, but Suga uses this word everywhere. In fact, look, he even used this word on the official BTS Twitter account. I might start using 굉장히 a bit more myself now. It's pretty useful. But speaking of filler words and that hissing sound, another thing you may have noticed is Suga's overall voice tone. I'll let this clip do the talking for me.
이게 어땠을까? 원래 제목은 프렌드였네요. 프렌드 1. 이게 9월 9일 날 최종적으로 랩 가사를 다 쓰고 이제 뭐 멜로디 다 붙이고 이런 거 했던.
Now, again, I've been learning Korean for almost 18 years, but sometimes when he mumbles a bit or just talks to himself quietly, it can be a bit difficult to understand, more than the other members at times. And I've heard other Korean learners express to me that this is also the case. Is it the same for you? But I found that Suga, when he's just speaking, tends to have the lowest voice tone of all of the members. And many people really like that about him. He has a gentle sounding, deep and soft voice. But I think to the average Korean learner, his voice tone can sometimes make it a bit more difficult to comprehend what he's saying. Now, he doesn't always speak like this. When he gets excited about something or more energetic, he'll raise his voice a bit. And he also doesn't use this lower tone for all of his speaking either, especially when he first starts speaking.
키스를 보낼 수 있어, 네? 저거 제가 한국에 제가 가장 먼저 사서 들어왔어요. 저 발매되자마자. 이거 미국에 있을 때 발매됐었나 아마 그랬었는데
Often when he's beginning to express something or just adding in his thoughts in the middle of a conversation, his voice comes out loud and clear. So the beginning of his sentences tend to be easier to understand for a Korean learner than the end of his sentences, which can sound much softer. And again, remember, this isn't how he always speaks. In fact, I've heard many, if not more, examples of him speaking with a louder voice than I have of him using this softer voice.
그냥 구조를 이렇게 짤 때 우리가 모르겠어요. 사람들이 들어봤을 때 BTS 음악을 들으면서 어떻게 생각할지 모르겠지만 굉장히 정교하게 짜긴 하거든요.
In this example, although he's using his deep and softer sounding voice, he's still quite clear and easy to understand. And I think if you're having any difficulty understanding what he's saying, such as when he's just talking to himself or speaking more quietly, just turn up the volume and you should be fine. But I also have one more tip for understanding Suga.
시인을 꿈꿨던 소년이 랩을 해야겠다고 마음먹었던 그 순간이 있어요. 저는 랩을 해야겠어. 나는 뭐 음악을 만들어야겠어. 했던 그 순간이 있어요. 근데 날짜는 정확하게 모르겠어. 근데
What I think could actually make it more difficult to understand Suga if you're a Korean learner isn't so much only his lower voice, but it's his intonation. And this has to do with his dialect, as we'll talk about in a bit, which sometimes affects his intonation because the region that he's from is well known for its quick, wave-like intonation. Now, I'm used to hearing this sort of intonation as I also first learned to speak Korean while living in that part of Korea known as Gyeongsang province. But fortunately, even if you don't know any dialect, this is something you can just adjust for. So if Suga happens to be your bias, just listening to him speak as much as possible, preferably with Korean subtitles instead of English, should help you get used to his intonation and then be able to focus on the words that he's saying instead of on the way that he's saying them. However, if your goal is to understand Suga completely, we should also take a look at his writing. Here's a letter that he wrote to Jimin for his birthday. Now, at first glance, you might think that this writing is a bit messy, but that's actually not the case. Typically, when you're writing syllables, you want to keep everything as square as possible so it will look balanced. What Suga does, however, is he writes more horizontally, more rectangular, but besides that, his stroke order is perfect, and while his letters are slightly stretched, they still manage to look all balanced. In fact, he writes the stroke order so nicely that we can still see each syllable individually. For example, at the top he writes, 윤기 형이야. So it's me, your older brother, Yoongi. In the syllable Yoon, you can see that he wrote you first by writing the left downward stroke and then the right one, which goes right into the Nian letter at the bottom, so the N letter at the bottom. And for the word hyung, he did this all at once without even lifting the pen. He goes from the hiat, the H letter, right into the yol, and then right to the top of the middle of the iung letter, the circle, which is exactly how you're supposed to begin writing that letter. So I can tell that he took his time writing this. It probably meant a lot to him. And I can tell that because if he were rushing, we'd actually be able to see more of the remnants of the final stroke of his previous syllables carrying over into the next syllable. For example, if he were rushing when writing something like this, 지민아, we would see a slight flick where the pen goes from the bottom of 지 up to the top of min, and then again into ah. But I can't see anything like that. Also, unrelated to the shape of his letters, if you read what he wrote, it's also a lot like how he speaks. When Suga writes, it's very concise, and his sentences are just saying what he wants to say. Here, I think that this sentence shows that pretty well. 항상 노력하고 발전하는 지민이 정말 많이 늘었고 더 늘 거라 믿는다. Meaning, Jimin, I know you're always working hard and progressing, and you've really improved so much, and I hope that you'll improve more. I read the whole letter, and all of it is straightforward and simple to understand like this. Here's another part. 지금처럼 열심히 노력하면 분명 더 멋진 가수 지민이가 될 수 있을 거야. If you keep working hard like you are now, Jimin, I'm sure that you'll become an even more wonderful singer. I just kind of want to translate the whole thing for you now because it's a pretty sweet letter that he wrote to Jimin, but I do have another letter that I want to show you. This is a typed letter from Suga that he wrote to himself, and although although this one we don't get to see his handwriting, we do get to see a lot more of his writing style. And just as I would expect, his writing is concise. He doesn't waste words, and he likes to keep things straightforward as he does when speaking. In fact, while Suga might be one of the more difficult members for Korean learners to understand when he's speaking, I actually think his writing is super clear and would make great translation practice. For example, in the very first sentence, we get this. 벌써 데뷔한 지 5년이 지났고 6년 차 가수. And then his sentence actually continues a bit more, but let's focus on this part. It's my 6th year of being a singer, and it's already been 5 years since my debut. It's possible many of you learning Korean can understand that sentence without my translation, at least most of it. And while his writing isn't super simple, I mean, he's a native speaker, you don't need to be completely advanced to understand it, like you probably do to understand RM's writing. However, one thing that Suga doesn't seem to do much of in this letter and in the other is punctuation. In fact, in Korea, punctuation isn't used in the same way as we do in English, so this doesn't surprise me. But he doesn't even use any commas. For example, here are 2 sentences in one line on the page. 모르겠어. And then that's the end of the first sentence, followed by 되게 어떤 사람은 좀 즐겨라 라고 이야기하는데. So I don't know. I guess just some people say enjoy yourself, but... And then he continues his thoughts in the next line. Come on, Suga, use some commas. But I'm kidding. This letter is actually written in a way that makes it look almost like poetry, so maybe that's just intentional. Oh, hey, did you see what he wrote in the second to last sentence here? 굉장히 중요하다고 생각하기 때문에. So he's even using 굉장히 to himself. It is a good word. Okay, but there's still one major topic we haven't even touched yet, and that's his dialect.
완전 왕가이네 이거. 심지어 예로 가자.
I mentioned his intonation previously, and that intonation is due to his dialect from his hometown of Daegu. Now, Daegu is in the Gyeongsang province, which is known for its wave-like intonation, so it goes up and down, well, much more rapidly than what's known as 표준어 or standard Korean. Now, while he grew up in Daegu and even lived there up through middle school, almost all of the time, he's just speaking in standard Korean. And this is true for the majority of celebrities you see on TV, no matter where they come from. But if you're listening carefully, Suga does sometimes, perhaps unintentionally, use some of his original dialect.
등지 마라 했다. 마이크 이렇게 가리면 소리 안 들어간다.
You may have heard of the term 사투리, which is just the Korean word for a regional dialect. So Suga specifically can sometimes use Daegu 사투리 or Daegu dialect. And there are many different dialects in Korea, such as Busan dialect, which you'll hear when I talk about Jimin and Jungkook, or Gwangju dialect, as you'll see next with J-Hope, and each 사투리 can be unique from the next. In fact, the BTS members speak many different dialects from all around Korea. Specifically, 서울 강원부터 경상도, 충청도부터 전라도. If you know it, you know it. The members who are from Gyeongsang province are Suga from Daegu, Jimin and Jungkook from Busan, and V who's from Gyeongsang. So here's some things to keep an eye out for when they use dialect. Besides the wave-like intonation, which is the most noticeable, pay attention to different verb endings, especially when speaking casually. For example, if you hear a sentence that has the endings no, na, ko, and ka. These are all question endings, then it might be from this dialect. Another feature is simpler pronunciation. So it's common for syllables that have 2 vowels, for example, 의, 워, etc., to just be pronounced more simply as e and all. In fact, it's common for the vowels o and all to also just be pronounced the same way. And one more thing is the word no for you can also be said as ni. But besides that, most of what Suga says isn't dialect, so you shouldn't have to know too much about it to understand him. Again, as long as you're used to his intonation.
좋은데?
좋은데? 야, 느낌이 좋아. 느낌 나쁘지 않아요?
Now, I could keep going on about Suga's unique style of speaking, but I think I should save some time for all of the other members and stop here. So, if you enjoyed this video, please make sure to give it a like and subscribe to my channel for more. Also, if you'd like to support me in making more videos like these, please also consider joining my Patreon page or becoming a member on my channel. It was actually a supporter who originally asked me to make this video series about BTS, and I'll have links for how to support me in the description box below. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you again next time. 그럼 다음에 또 봐.